That was for you. Perfect. Today we're talking about placements. I wanted to put together a video that would tell you all about a placement and also how to apply, tips, tricks, whatever. Well, not really tricks, but the tips for applying for a placement. But basically, I realized that it would probably be a bit too long. So today I'm just gonna tell you everything you need to know about doing a placement, whether you're trying to decide whether you should do one or you heard the word placement and you're not really even sure what the heck that is. So I'm gonna tell you that today, along with some pros and cons in the second half of this video. So yeah, let's get into it, I think. Also, if you have any questions about anything, put them down below and I will do my best to answer them. So first of all, since you clicked on this video, you probably already know what a placement year is. But if you don't know what a placement year is, it could also be called an internship or work experience or a sandwich year. So basically what happens is that after your second year of university, you go into the real world and you work for a company, you gain experience, and that's what you do for an entire year. And since this is taking place after your second year of university, you're still technically a student, meaning that you still have your student status, which means that you still get your student loan and you still get your discount. It's important to mention that, okay? It's important. But it also means that you have to do coursework during your placement. This is gonna depend on the type of degree you're doing, the type of placement, the type of university you go to. But for me, for example, it consists of writing placement entries every single month, talking about what I learned, what I did, who I met, etc. It's really boring, but it has to be done. And that's basically gonna be part of my final grade from the placement year. And unfortunately, since you still have the student status, you still have to pay tuition fees. It's not the full amount, it's not £9,000, but for me personally, it was about £1,800 because I think I paid 20% of the full price. So it's not completely free, unfortunately, but at least you get a reduced rate. And again, this is gonna depend on every university, I'm sure. But I'm just telling you what's going on right here. Now let's talk about the different types of placements. So you can either work for a private company, for example L'Oreal, or you can work for public companies like I do, as I work for the NHS. Now the biggest difference between these is usually that the placements with private companies are paid, whereas the placements with public companies or government institutions are unpaid. It's a little bit different for me. So even though I work for the NHS, which is a government organization, I do still get paid, quite a lot even. Lucky me, hashtag blessed. So I do still get paid, but I specifically work in the NHS's data... What's it called? Oh my god, this is embarrassing. Department of Analytics and Intelligence Services. Okay, yeah, that's what it's called, I think. So usually with the paid placements, you work 5 times a week, about 40 hours a week, depending on the company, and you get paid anywhere from about 15,000 to 25,000 pounds, depending also on where in the UK you are. If you're in the north, it's probably gonna be less, and if you're in London area, it's probably gonna be more. I personally work for a London-based company, so I'm just rolling in that cash. It's honestly not that much, I don't know what I'm saying. And as for the unpaid placements, so this is gonna be more concerning to, for example, psychology students. I am a psychology student, so I would know something about this. So for psychology students, for example, the placements aren't usually paid. And that's because when you want to work in psychology, it's usually in a hospital or a charity, and generally speaking, neither of those have a lot of money, so your placement is not likely to be paid. One thing about these unpaid placements though, if you work for a hospital or a charity, is that your work week is usually going to be only 4 days a week, which means that you're going to have your last day off. Now, our teachers always told us that if you have an unpaid placement and you're only working 4 days a week, that you can get a part-time job for the last 3 days. But honestly, like, imagine working for 4 days and then working some more for 3 more days in a week. Like, that just sounds like a fucking nightmare, so I wouldn't recommend that. I think it's a really good recipe for getting burnt out. So yeah, like I said, wouldn't recommend it. Also with the unpaid placements, the way that some people solve this problem is that they just get a placement in the location of where their parents live and they move back in with their parents for a year, and that way they don't have to pay for rent, they don't have to pay for food, and they still get to do a placement year. So that's also an option if you like your parents. Also with the unpaid placements, some of these actually aren't 12 months long, which is the standard duration of a placement. With the hospital or charity placements, they can only last about 6 months, and then you can find another placement for the second half of the year, or you can just, I don't know, get a part-time job, go traveling, just hang out, I don't know. But I just wanted to mention that the hospital placements aren't necessarily for the full 12 months, whereas in the private companies they usually are. Now let's talk about when you should apply for a placement. So I think the general rule here is that you should apply as soon as possible. Now, right now it's the end of December, but if you're just now watching this video and you're like,
oh my god, I haven't started looking for a placement as soon as possible.
Don't worry. Okay, you're not doomed. There are placement opportunities being advertised all the time, so just because you didn't start first thing in September like I did, doesn't mean that you're not gonna get a placement, because like I said, there might be a placement opportunity that's gonna get advertised in like March time, and by the end of the year you will have secured a placement. So in terms of what's the latest time to apply for a placement, I would say that that's about May-ish time. At least at my university they told us that we should have a placement secured until about June, July time, because then it takes a lot of time to process everything. So yeah, like I said, the sooner the better, but at the same time, if you haven't applied yet, then don't worry about it. You're gonna find something, I'm sure. And since we're talking about the application process, I have very good news for you, which is that you don't actually have to apply for a placement in your major. I am a great example of this, okay? My degree is psychology, but my placement is in data analysis. The team that I work for is the diabetes team, okay? There is no psychology happening there whatsoever. So if you feel like you're studying your degree and you don't really like it all that much, and you feel like you would be much more interested in working in marketing, for example, then try applying for marketing placements. My friend, for example, also a psychology student, she is actually in that situation. So she is thinking about applying for a marketing placement because she just doesn't really want to work in psychology. So I just wanted to let you know that the option is there. And another thing with the application process, I don't know how it works at other universities, but you need to apply for the placements yourself. Your universities should offer you a list of placements or have connections with some organizations, and on their website they should advertise some of those placements. But just because you want to do a placement year doesn't mean that you're gonna do a placement year. You need to apply for a placement year yourself. You need to go through the application process and you need to be selected by somebody. So there's a lot of work to be done. I'm just putting that out there. The reason I'm mentioning this is because at my university, for example, you can apply for a psychology degree with a placement year before you actually start studying at that university. So in that case, you do get some preparation like in your first year and your second year, telling you, oh, this is what you should do if you want to do a placement after your second year. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are guaranteed a placement year, because you gotta earn it, girl! You gotta earn the placement to earn the cash, okay? That's all you need to know about placement. Okay, moving on. So chances are that you are deciding between doing a placement year and studying abroad, but actually you can do both. So it is possible to get the abroad experience while getting the placement experience as well. I just wouldn't recommend going to a country where you don't know the language, because you're gonna have a bad time. Just to give you an example, a friend of mine is from Portugal and he obviously studies in the UK like me, but this year he's back in Portugal doing a placement, living with his family, I presume. I don't really know. Point is, he is a UK student and he has a placement in Portugal. The only thing about the placements abroad is that they're not going to be advertised by your university, which means that you actually have to find the placement yourself. And the placement needs to be approved by your university so that they can make sure that you're going to be learning something valuable. Since we're talking about el extranjero, or working abroad, how is it with international students? So I am an international student myself, so I know a little something on this topic. I'm originally from Czech Republic, but I study in the UK and I work in the UK. I got a placement here, so you know it's possible. Now, I feel like this is gonna be much easier to explain if I just talk about myself, so sorry. So basically, I wanted to do a placement because I wanted to take a break from studying because it was fucking draining. And basically my major criteria for doing a placement was that it had to be paid. Because as an EU student, I don't get a maintenance loan, so if I did an unpaid placement, my family would have to pay for everything, and my family isn't that rich, so that just wouldn't be possible. So my condition was getting a paid placement, and that was the only way that I was able to afford living. It's a little bit different for overseas students. So like I mentioned, I'm an EU student and there weren't really that many issues with the fact that I was an EU student, but I know that overseas students actually need to have a visa or a work permit. Now, I know nothing about visas or work permits, so I can't really tell you much about that. I'm gonna link down a video of an overseas student that also did a placement in the UK, and she's from Asia, so she can actually tell you more about that. I just don't want to talk about a topic that I am not qualified to talk about. So like I said, you can get a placement as an EU student, but you need to think about the finances. So this video was actually getting a bit too long, so I'm gonna end it over here. I'm gonna link the other part over here, right? If you want to see the second part, you can click over here or in the description box below. Give this video a like, subscribe, and let me know if you have any questions. And go watch part 2 now. Look at her, she's so lonely. She just wants to hang out with you. Okay, I'm going. See ya.